Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome back to another on-the-road video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com. Today, we are working on a Samsung top-load washing machine. We will show you how to remove and replace your transmission. To begin, we must first open the lid so we can gain access to our wash plate. Stop. Before beginning any repair, always be sure to disconnect the power to the appliance. It is also recommended to test the outlet for the proper voltage. Remember to also turn off the water. The tools you will need for this repair are a number 2 Phillips screwdriver, a small flat blade screwdriver, a ratchet, 10, 13, and 17 millimeter sockets, and an adjustable wrench and hammer. Now that we have access inside the unit, first you'll have to use a small flat blade screwdriver to go in this divot, press in to release the tab, lift up and remove. Now that we have that removed, there's one 10 millimeter socket that's holding on the wash plate. Remove this and then lift up on the wash plate. Now that our wash plate is removed and set aside, you'll have to remove this large nut that's actually holding on the drum to the basket. You'll notice there are directions on here. One is open, one is closed. So what we want to do is put on an adjustable wrench, put on there tight, and use a small hammer to tap it in the direction that the open line is going to. When you do this, make sure you hold tight on the actual drum. Loosen the bolt and remove. Now we'll tip the unit back to access the bound components. Now that we have the unit tipped back, we have clear access to our motor and transmission assembly. Now when you have a bad transmission, the most common thing you're going to find is it's going to be very loud when it's going in the spin cycle. Usually when you tip it back, sometimes you'll find brown oil marks all around splattered on the wall or on the actual casing of the motor rotor itself. These are both very common traits for a bad transmission on this. It could be just loud, or you could hear a grinding noise. If there's nothing wrong with your wash plate, this also could indicate that you have a bad transmission. To begin, we'll first have to take off this bracket that's held on by 4 Phillips screws on the sides. Hold on to the bracket while you're removing the last screw so it doesn't fall. And set it aside. To remove your rotor from your motor assembly, there's a 17 millimeter socket that's on here. You have to hold on to the rotor and loosen it and keep holding on to it while you're taking it off. Remember, you have the socket, a small washer, as well as a large washer, but you want to keep them in that order when reassembling. So set them aside. Next, gently pull down on the rotor assembly and slide it off. Now that our rotor is removed, disconnect the wiring harnesses to your actual motor assembly. When you're disconnecting this one, you'll have to press in toward the front like this to pull out. And this one here, you press in on the sides and just kind of wiggle it out. Next, remove the 5 10 millimeter bolts that are holding on the motor. When you're at the last one, make sure you hold on to the motor when loosening it. Gently pull down and set it aside. Next, we'll have to remove the clutch cable. There is a pin that goes into the top portion of the clutch. Slide it out and set the pin aside. Next, go around the perimeter and remove the 13mm bolts that are holding it on. Hold on to the transmission when removing the last one. Now push your fingers in the sides and start wiggling it out and slide it out the bottom and set your transmission aside. When installing your transmission, first you'll have to notate the position of this will be going toward the back. Now when you're sliding your transmission in, the seal will cause it to be a little stiff on the tub, and if you did not take out your basket, you may have to wiggle it around in order to get it to slide up in place. So first, position it correctly, slide the shaft inside the drum, give it a good wiggle so your tub seal will seat properly. Start one of the bolts, then tighten it to hold it in place. Next, go around the perimeter and resecure the rest of your bolts. Next, slide back in your clutch cable and resecure the pin that was holding it. Now we can reinstall our motor. When reinstalling your motor, you'll want to position it. Now each one of these holes should fit into holes on the actual transmission. You'll want your wiring harness to be pointed to where the wiring connectors are. Should fit in there properly. Make sure your connections are going to fit. Put one bolt in there by hand just to hold it. Tighten your bolt. Go around the perimeter and tighten the remainders. Now we can reconnect our Molex connectors, and we can reinstall our rotor. When you're installing your rotor, there's a sprocket that is laying on top of the rotor. Basically, it's got two different areas, a larger portion and a smaller portion. The larger portion feeds into the bottom of the transmission and goes into the directed spots on here. The smaller portion goes into this spot of the rotor. First, I recommend sliding it into the rotor and getting it locked into place. This can be very tricky as it has a square end to it. This has to slide perfectly onto this portion of the shaft to feed in there correctly. It might take a time or two to get it in there just right. That actually went pretty smooth, but sometimes when you're pulling it out and trying to turn it, that sprocket will fall down, so you might have to take it off 2 or 3 times to get it in there properly, but once it's in, you just slide it all the way up and we can replace your washer and bolt. Slide in the larger washer, followed by the smaller one. And start to hand tighten your bolt. Use your socket and hold on to the rotor to tighten the rest of the way. Now we can reinstall our bracket. When installing your bracket, slide it into position. There are 2 plastic glides on each side. Slide them through the designated holes. Get one of your bolts into position. Hold your bracket and tighten it. Go around the perimeter and re-secure the other 3. Now we'll set the unit back upright and install the nut and wash plate. Now that we are back inside the unit, you will have to reattach your nut that holds the drum into place. Once again, see where it shows either open or close on this so that you can tap it in the right direction. You will want to go toward the close arrow. Get it hand tight. Put on your adjustable wrench. Hold on to the basket and start to tighten the bolt. You should hear a sound difference when it starts to get tight. Just stop, do not over tighten it so that you don't damage the actual shaft of the unit. Now we can reinstall our wash plate. Flip it right side in. Gently hold on to it and turn it until it drops in place. Next, hand tighten your 10mm bolt that you took out previously. Use the socket to tighten it up. Replace your cap. You'll see that there are a couple of clips on here. They go into the slotted area of the wash plate. So align it. Press it down so it clips in place. And this will complete your repair. Thank you for watching another quality video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com.